We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know, what part of the world are you watching from right now? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Russo Family. Daniel Russo stood at the kitchen counter of his sprawling Mediterranean-style home, nursing a cup of coffee as he watched the California sun rise through the bay window. At 45, he'd built everything from nothing, a thriving construction company that specialized in luxury homes, investments that had multiplied, and most importantly, a family he cherished. Behind him, a collection of framed photographs chronicled his journey. Daniel in his 20s, haunted-eyed but determined after his first wife abandoned him and their infant daughter. Daniel and Lily at her high school graduation. Daniel and Vanessa on their wedding day 5 years ago, his arm around her waist, her smile dazzling for the cameras. His phone buzzed with a text from his daughter Lily. "Dad, just confirming venue appointment tomorrow at 2. Adam's parents want to join." "Okay." Daniel smiled. At 24, Lily had grown into a remarkable young woman, compassionate, intelligent, and about to marry her college sweetheart, Adam Bennett. Unlike Daniel's first marriage or his current one to Vanessa, he had complete faith in Lily and Adam's relationship. They'd dated for 4 years, worked through college together, and supported each other's dreams. Adam worked at a nonprofit environmental law firm, while Lily pursued her doctorate in psychology. "Absolutely. Looking forward to meeting them again," Daniel replied. He heard the sound of high heels clicking on a marble floor behind him. "Morning," Vanessa said, barely glancing his way as she grabbed a bottle of green juice from the refrigerator. At 36, Vanessa Palmer Russo remained as stunning as the day they'd met, tall and willowy with auburn hair and sharp green eyes. She'd been a marketing director for a hospitality group when they'd met at a charity gala. Their connection had been immediate and intense, leading to marriage within a year. "Good morning," Daniel responded, watching her carefully. "Will you be joining us tomorrow to finalize Lily's engagement party venue?" Vanessa pursed her lips, scrolling through her phone. "Something's come up at work. The Sullivan account needs attention. You and Lily can handle it." Daniel nodded, unsurprised but disappointed. It was becoming a pattern, Vanessa's gradual disengagement from family events, especially those centered around Lily. "It would mean a lot to Lily if you came," he tried again. "She specifically asked for your input on the menu selection." "I'm sure whatever you choose will be fine," Vanessa replied dismissively. "Besides, Lily and I have different tastes. You know her better than I do." The underlying message wasn't lost on Daniel. After 5 years of marriage, Vanessa had never fully embraced her role as Lily's stepmother. Initially, she'd made efforts, attending Lily's college graduation, hosting holiday dinners, offering shopping trips. But over the past year, a coldness had developed that Daniel couldn't ignore. "The Biltmore is an expensive venue," Vanessa added, gathering her designer purse and car keys. "Perhaps something more modest would be appropriate." Daniel frowned. "Money isn't an issue. We agreed on this." "It just seems excessive for what it is," she said with a shrug. "I need to run. Board meeting at 9. As she walked out, Daniel noticed her checking her appearance in the hallway mirror, applying fresh lipstick before leaving, something she rarely did for ordinary workdays. The unease that had been building in Daniel's gut for months intensified. Something wasn't right, but he couldn't quite place it. Working 16-hour days, building his company had taught him to trust his instincts. And right now, those instincts were screaming. Later that evening, Daniel sat in his home office reviewing blueprints for a new development when his phone rang. It was Bennett Rodriguez, his oldest friend and business partner. "How's it going, Dan?" Bennett's familiar voice brought comfort. They'd known each other since their days doing construction work in their 20s, sleeping in Bennett's van between jobs when Daniel couldn't afford rent after his first wife left. "Something's off with Vanessa," Daniel admitted. "Been feeling it for months." Bennett was silent for a moment. "You want me to have Maria invite her for lunch? My wife got a sixth sense for these things." "No," Daniel sighed. "I need to figure this out myself." "How's the Westlake project coming along?" They discussed business for another 20 minutes before hanging up. Daniel leaned back in his chair, staring at a photo of Vanessa from their 3rd anniversary trip to Santorini. Her smile in that picture had reached her eyes. These days, he couldn't remember the last time he'd seen that genuine happiness. Just as he was about to close his laptop, an email notification appeared, the monthly credit card statement. Daniel normally wouldn't review it immediately, but tonight, his unease pushed him to click open the file. He scrolled through the statement methodically, noting the usual charges: Vanessa's salon appointments, clothing purchases, business lunches. Then he paused, his finger hovering over a charge he didn't recognize. Trenton Hotel, $487. The Trenton was a boutique hotel downtown. Daniel frowned, tried to recall if Vanessa had mentioned entertaining clients there. Another charge caught his eye from the same day. La Maison Restaurant, $312. Daniel pulled out his phone and opened his calendar app. The date of those charges, 3 weeks ago, had been a Tuesday. According to his calendar, Vanessa had told him she was having dinner with her college friend Charlotte, who was visiting from Seattle. His throat tightened. He scrolled further, finding more unexplained charges. Another hotel, a jewelry store purchase he'd never seen her wear, late-night rideshare services on evenings she claimed to be working late. Daniel closed the laptop slowly, his mind racing. He wasn't a jealous man by nature, had never felt the need to question Vanessa's whereabouts or monitor her spending. But these discrepancies couldn't be ignored. He thought of Lily's upcoming engagement party, of the family they were trying to build. Whatever was happening, he needed to address it. After Lily's special day, his daughter's happiness came first. Chapter 2. Cracks in the Facade. The Biltmore estate gleamed in the afternoon sunlight, its elegant architecture and manicure gardens providing the perfect backdrop for what should have been a happy occasion. Daniel stood with Lily, Adam, and Adam's parents, Walter and Patricia Bennett, as the event coordinator led them through the venue. This space would be perfect for the engagement dinner, the coordinator explained, gesturing to a terrace overlooking the gardens. We can accommodate your 80 guests comfortably, with space for dancing afterward. Lily squeezed Daniel's arm, her eyes bright with excitement. It's exactly what we imagined, Dad. What do you think? Daniel smiled at his daughter, pushing aside the unease that had followed him since discovering those credit card charges. It's perfect, sweetheart. If this is what you want, then it's done. Patricia Bennett, a warm-hearted woman with silver-streaked dark hair, nodded approvingly. The flowers would look lovely arranged along these columns. And that view is spectacular. The coordinator beamed. Excellent. Now, regarding the deposit to secure the date. I'll take care of it today, Daniel interjected, pulling out his checkbook. As they finalized the details, Daniel's phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa, running late at office. Don't wait up for dinner. Another late night. The third this week. After saying goodbye to Lily and the Bennetts, Daniel drove home in thoughtful silence. Instead of turning into his driveway, however, he made a split-second decision and continued past, heading toward downtown. 20 minutes later, he parked across from the sleek glass building that housed Palmer White Marketing, Vanessa's firm. The office lights were still on in several windows, typical for a company known for its demanding work culture. Daniel wasn't proud of what he was doing, but he needed to know. He waited in his car, watching the parking garage exit. At 8:47 p.m., Vanessa's white Audi emerged from the garage. Daniel started his engine, but didn't immediately follow. He watched as the car stopped at the curb half a block away. Moments later, a tall man with silver-flecked dark hair approached and got into the passenger seat. Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel as he recognized Dr. Thomas Hayes, a cardiologist they'd met at a hospital charity gala last year. The man Vanessa had subsequently described as arrogant and full of himself. The Audi pulled away from the curb, and Daniel followed at a distance, his years hunting down prime real estate locations having taught him how to remain unobtrusive. They drove for 15 minutes before pulling into the underground parking of an upscale apartment building in the Arts District. Daniel parked across the street, watching as Vanessa and Thomas emerged from the car, walking close together but not touching, maintaining plausible deniability in public. They disappeared into the building. For over an hour, Daniel sat in his car, a cold numbness spreading through him. When he finally drove home, the house was dark and silent. He went to his office rather than the bedroom, pulled out the bottle of Macallan 18 he kept for special occasions, and poured himself 3 fingers. The next morning, Vanessa was already gone when he awoke on the office couch. Daniel showered, changed into fresh clothes he kept at the house for early job site visits, and headed to the construction company's headquarters. Bennett was waiting in Daniel's office, expression grim. "You look like hell. I need you to find out everything you can about Dr. Thomas Hayes," Daniel said without preamble. Discreetly, Bennett studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll have Maria reach out to her cousin, who works at Presbyterian Hospital." "Thank you." Daniel turned to his computer, forcing himself to focus on work emails. "Dan," Bennett said quietly, "whatever's happening, don't make any decisions when you're angry." Daniel looked up at his oldest friend. "I'm not angry yet. Just gathering information." By afternoon, Bennett returned with a file. Dr. Thomas Hayes, 44, chief of cardiology at Presbyterian Hospital. Divorced 3 years ago from Dr. Caroline Hayes, dermatologist, with whom he shared custody of their teenage son. Respected in his field, with a reputation for brilliance and arrogance in equal measure. Recently purchased a luxury apartment in the Arts District. Maria's cousin says there are rumors he's been seeing a married woman, Bennett added. Staff has noticed expensive gifts arriving at his office. Long lunch breaks where he disappears. Daniel closed the file. "I need one more favor." "Name it." "I want our security guy, Ramirez, to follow Vanessa for the next week. Document everything." Bennett frowned. "Dan, are you sure? I need to know what I'm dealing with before I confront her," Daniel said firmly. "Lily's engagement party is in 3 weeks. I won't ruin that for her." That evening, when Vanessa returned home around 9, Daniel was waiting in the kitchen, preparing dinner as if nothing were amiss. "You cook?" Vanessa asked, surprise evident in her voice as she set down her purse. "Thought it might be nice to have a meal together," Daniel replied, keeping his tone casual. "Been a while since we've had time to talk." Something flashed in Vanessa's eyes, discomfort, perhaps guilt, before she smiled tightly. "That's thoughtful. Let me just freshen up." Over pasta and wine, Daniel asked about her day. The Sullivan account she'd mentioned was demanding attention. Vanessa's responses were detailed and plausible. Client expectations, marketing strategies, budget negotiations. Either she was telling the truth about her work, or she'd become exceptionally skilled at fabricating convincing lies. "Lily's thrilled with the Biltmore for the engagement party," Daniel mentioned, watching her reaction closely. "The coordinator had some excellent suggestions for the menu." "That's nice," Vanessa replied, taking a sip of wine. "Though I still think it's excessive for an engagement party. Most people will just have a small dinner." "Lily's not most people. She's my daughter." Vanessa's expression hardened slightly. "Of course. I'm just being practical. It's your money to spend." "Our money," Daniel corrected. "That was the agreement when we married. What's mine is yours." A flash of something, calculation perhaps, crossed Vanessa's face before she smiled. "Of course, darling. I'm just trying to be mindful." Later, as they prepared for bed in their master suite, Daniel watched as Vanessa applied her nighttime skincare regimen, a routine that had become increasingly elaborate and expensive over the past year. "I have to go to Phoenix next week," she mentioned casually, smoothing serum over her cheekbones. "The Sullivan team wants an in-person presentation. I'll be gone Tuesday through Thursday." Daniel nodded, making a mental note to verify this with Ramirez's surveillance. "Need a ride to the airport?" "No need. The firm's arranging transportation." That night, lying beside his wife in bed, Daniel stared at the ceiling, acutely aware of the careful distance she maintained between them, a distance that had been growing for months without his fully acknowledging it. Chapter 3. The Betrayal Revealed. For the next 2 weeks, Daniel lived in a strange state of suspended animation, going through the motions of normal life while quietly gathering evidence of his wife's betrayal. Ramirez proved thorough and discreet, providing Daniel with detailed reports, photographs, and even recorded conversations captured in public places. The story they told was unambiguous. Vanessa and Thomas Hayes had been involved for at least 6 months, meeting 3 to 4 times weekly at his apartment, at hotels, or occasionally at her office after hours. The Phoenix trip had actually been 3 days spent at Hayes' apartment, emerging only for dinners at upscale restaurants. Each night, Daniel added the new evidence to a locked drawer in his home office, building a comprehensive picture of Vanessa's deception. He maintained a calm facade, focusing on work and preparations for Lily's engagement party. 4 days before the scheduled party, Daniel received a call from the Biltmore coordinator while at a job site. "Mr. Russo, I'm calling to confirm the cancellation of the engagement party reservation for Saturday." Daniel frowned, stepping away from the construction noise. "Cancellation? There must be a mistake. We haven't canceled anything." "Oh." The coordinator sounded confused. "Mrs. Russo called yesterday to cancel. She said plans had changed and authorized us to process the cancellation fee on your credit card." Cold fury washed over Daniel. "I see. And did Mrs. Russo happen to make another reservation with you?" "I'm not at liberty to discuss other clients' bookings, Mr. Russo." "Of course. Please uncancel my original reservation. I'll be there within the hour to sort this out personally." Daniel drove straight to the Biltmore, where the apologetic coordinator confirmed that yes, the reservation could be reinstated, though the cancellation fee was non-refundable. As Daniel signed the paperwork, he casually asked about availability the following weekend. "I'm afraid we're fully booked for a birthday celebration," the coordinator replied. "A 40th birthday party. Quite an elaborate affair." Daniel nodded, keeping his expression neutral despite the rage building inside him. Thomas Hayes would be turning 40 the following weekend. Instead of returning to the job site, Daniel drove to Lily's apartment. He needed to see his daughter to ensure her party hadn't been derailed by Vanessa's actions. Lily opened the door, her expression brightening at the sight of him. "Dad, I was just about to call you." The caterer called with a question about the menu. Daniel felt a wave of relief. Lily didn't know about the attempted cancellation. "Just want to check in on last-minute details," he said, following her inside. "Everything going according to plan?" As Lily chatted excitedly about floral arrangements and music selections, Daniel studied his daughter, her animated expressions, her genuine joy. Lily had weathered the abandonment by her biological mother, had grown into a resilient, loving young woman despite that early trauma. He would not allow Vanessa's betrayal to cast a shadow over Lily's happiness. "Dad, is everything okay?" Lily was looking at him with concern. "You seem distracted." Daniel forced a smile. "Just a lot on my mind with work. Tell me more about the dress you found." Later that evening, Daniel returned home to find Vanessa in the kitchen, preparing a salad. "You're late," she commented without looking up. "I thought we could have dinner together." "Had to make an unexpected stop at the Biltmore," Daniel replied, watching her carefully. "Seems there was a mix-up with Lily's engagement party reservation." Vanessa's hands stilled momentarily before she resumed chopping. "Oh, what happened? Someone canceled it." Daniel leaned against the counter, directly in her line of sight. "Imagine my surprise when I found out it was you." Vanessa set down the knife, her expression hardening. "It was the practical decision. That venue is overpriced, and Lily's party doesn't need to be so extravagant." "Practical," Daniel repeated. "Like booking the same venue the following weekend for Thomas Hayes' birthday party?" The color drained from Vanessa's face. She opened her mouth, closed it, then drew herself up straighter. "You've been spying on me." "I've been discovering the truth," Daniel corrected. 6 months of lying to my face while sleeping with another man. "It's not what you think." "Do not," Daniel cut her off, his voice dangerously quiet, "insult my intelligence by denying what I've seen with my own eyes. What I need to understand is why you would deliberately try to ruin my daughter's engagement celebration." Something ugly flashed across Vanessa's face. "Your precious daughter," she spat. "Always Lily first. Lily's needs, Lily's happiness." "What about what I want, Daniel?" "And what is it that you want, Vanessa? Because you seem to have everything: a beautiful home, financial security, a husband who trusted you completely." "I want a child of my own." Vanessa's voice rose. "I've told you for 2 years that I want a baby, and you keep putting it off, saying the timing isn't right. Meanwhile, you're throwing money at Lily's every whim." Daniel stared at her, genuinely shocked. "We discussed this before we married. You agreed that you didn't want children immediately, that we'd revisit the question after 5 years. And it's been 5 years. But now you're wrapped up in Lily's engagement and wedding, and there's never going to be room for a child of our own. So this affair, trying to sabotage Lily's party, this is all about you wanting a baby? Vanessa's expression turned cold. Thomas wants children. He's already proven he's a good father, and he doesn't have a daughter consuming all his attention and resources. Daniel felt as if he'd been struck. You would throw away our marriage because you're jealous of my relationship with my child? A child who has only ever been kind and welcoming to you. Your daughter isn't good enough for this family, Vanessa said, her voice dripping with disdain. She and that idealistic boyfriend of hers with their modest ambitions and public service nonsense. I want my own child, a child worthy of the lifestyle we have. But not from you, Daniel. Not anymore. The silence that followed her words was deafening. Daniel looked at this woman, this stranger, wondering how he could have been so blind to the darkness within her. I want you out of this house by morning, he said finally, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. Take whatever personal belongings you need for now. The rest can be arranged through our attorneys. Vanessa's expression shifted from defiance to alarm. You can't be serious. This is my home too. The prenuptial agreement you signed states clearly that in the event of infidelity, you forfeit any claim to this property, Daniel reminded her. A detail your attorney strongly advised you on before you signed. You wouldn't dare. I've already contacted my lawyer. Divorce papers will be ready tomorrow. Daniel turned toward his office, then paused. And Vanessa? Lily's engagement party will proceed as planned at the Biltmore. If you make any attempt to interfere, the evidence of your affair goes directly to your firm's board of directors, who I believe have a strict morality clause for partners. Vanessa paled. You're bluffing. Try me, Daniel responded, his voice colder than she'd ever heard it. You chose to break our vows. Now you can live with the consequences. He left her standing in the kitchen, shaking with fury or fear. He didn't care which. In his office, Daniel poured himself a drink and picked up the phone to call Bennett. Plans needed to be made, security measures implemented. Vanessa had revealed herself as an enemy, and Daniel Russo did not take attacks on his family lightly. What Vanessa didn't realize, what no one except Bennett knew, was that Daniel had survived far worse betrayals than hers. The poverty and abandonment of his youth had forged him into a man who appeared civilized on the surface, but maintained the survivor's instinct beneath. He had built his empire through strategic thinking and an unwavering resolve that had broken better opponents than Vanessa Palmer. She had declared war on the wrong man. Chapter 4. Opening Salvos. The morning after their confrontation, Daniel awoke on his office couch to the sound of drawers slamming upstairs. He checked his watch, 6:15 a.m., and calmly made himself coffee while Vanessa packed her things. Bennett arrived at 7 o'clock, as requested, bringing with him 2 men from the security company they used for construction sites. They positioned themselves discreetly at the property entrance, ensuring Vanessa didn't remove anything beyond her personal belongings. At 7:30, Vanessa descended the stairs, pulling 2 large suitcases. She froze momentarily at the sight of Bennett and Daniel calmly drinking coffee at the kitchen island. The security is excessive, she said coldly. I'm not a thief. Daniel raised an eyebrow, but said nothing, taking another sip of his coffee. Bennett cleared his throat. Mrs. Russo, I'll escort you out. Your car has been brought around front. Vanessa turned to Daniel, her composure cracking slightly. This isn't over. You think you can just throw me away after 5 years? You'll regret this. I already regret the past 5 years, Daniel replied evenly. The difference is, I'm doing something about it. After she left, Bennett gave Daniel's shoulder a supportive squeeze. You okay? I will be, Daniel said, placing his coffee mug in the sink. Let's get to the office. I've got calls to make. By noon, Daniel had met with his attorney, Gregory Walsh, a shrewd litigator who'd handled his business contract for years. The divorce filing was ready, comprehensive, airtight, with evidence of infidelity meticulously documented. This is about as clean-cut as it gets with a prenup and evidence you've gathered, Walsh assured him. However, be prepared for her to fight dirty. People rarely respond well to having their comfortable lives disrupted, especially when they're clearly in the wrong. Daniel nodded. I'm counting on her fighting back. In fact, I'm planning for it. Walsh gave him a curious look. Care to elaborate? Not yet, Daniel replied. But I will need your complete discretion and availability in the coming weeks. That evening, Daniel hosted dinner at his home for Lily, Adam, and the Bennetts. He needed to focus on his daughter's happiness to ensure the engagement party will be perfect despite Vanessa's attempt to derail it. Mom's not joining us, Lily asked as they settled at the dining table. Daniel had prepared for this moment, deciding that partial honesty was necessary. Lily, I need to tell you something. Vanessa and I are separating. She's moved out. Lily's eyes widened in shock. What? Dad, what happened? We've grown apart, Daniel said simply. It's been building for some time, and we've decided it's best to end things before they get worse. Is that why she tried to cancel the engagement party? Lily asked quietly. Daniel froze. You knew about that? Lily exchanged a glance with Adam. The Biltmore coordinator called me when she couldn't reach you to confirm the cancellation. I told her there must be a mistake. She reached for Daniel's hand. I didn't want to worry you if it was just a misunderstanding. Daniel squeezed her hand, pride swelling in his chest at his daughter's strength and consideration. I'm sorry, sweetheart. The last thing I wanted was for my problems with Vanessa to affect your celebration. Dad, Adam, and I would understand if you need to postpone. Absolutely not, Daniel interrupted firmly. Your engagement party will proceed exactly as planned. This is your time, and nothing will overshadow it. Patricia Bennett leaned forward. Daniel, we consider you family. Whatever you need during this difficult time, please don't hesitate to ask. Walter Bennett, a retired judge, nodded in agreement. Gregory Walsh is an excellent attorney. You're in good hands. Daniel looked around the table at these people who genuinely cared for him and Lily, feeling a renewed determination. This was what family should be: supportive, honest, loving. Not the toxic, manipulative relationship Vanessa had created. After dinner, as Adam helped Daniel clean up, the young man spoke quietly. Sir, I know this isn't my place, but my father mentioned that these situations can get complicated with shared assets and finances. If there's anything I can do. Daniel appreciated Adam's concern. The young man was studying for the bar exam after completing law school the previous year. Thank you, Adam. I've taken precautions, but I appreciate your offer. Those precautions included instructing his financial team to audit every account, investment, and asset connected to Vanessa. By morning, Daniel had a complete picture of their financial entanglements and discovered several troubling transactions. Over the past 3 months, Vanessa had transferred nearly $200,000 from their joint account to a personal account Daniel hadn't known existed. Several expensive jewelry purchases had been made just days before their confrontation. And most concerningly, she made multiple large cash withdrawals totaling over $50,000. Daniel immediately moved to protect his remaining assets, implementing the financial contingency plan he developed years ago after his first wife abandoned him and their infant daughter, leaving him nearly bankrupt. He'd sworn then never to be financially vulnerable again. 2 days before Lily's engagement party, Daniel's attorney called with news. Vanessa's lawyer reached out, Walsh reported. They're contesting the prenup, claiming you coerced her into signing it, and they're demanding half the value of the house, half your business interests, and spousal support. Daniel had expected this. What's their leverage? They're threatening to go public with claims that you've been emotionally abusive, controlling her finances, and isolating her from friends and family. They specifically mentioned this could damage your reputation with clients and impact Lily's engagement celebrations if it hit the press. They're threatening my daughter's happiness to extort money, Daniel summarized, cold anger settling in his chest. Tell them we reject their proposal entirely and we'll see them in court. And Greg? Add extortion to the filing. Next, Daniel called Bennett. It's time to implement Phase 2. Bennett arrived an hour later with a USB drive. Everything you asked for. Financial records, text messages, emails, hotel receipts. Our guy accessed her cloud accounts using the passwords you provided from your shared password manager. Daniel wasn't proud of this invasion of privacy, but Vanessa had left him no choice by threatening Lily. The files revealed far more than he'd anticipated, Detailed conversations between Vanessa and Thomas Hayes planning not just their affair, but their future together. Discussions about using the divorce settlement to fund a new life. Explicit mentions of their plan to marry once Hayes' practice expanded to a new location he was developing. Most disturbingly, there were mocking messages about Daniel and Lily. Vanessa complaining about having to pretend to care about the boring stepdaughter's engagement to that do-gooder lawyer. Hayes responding with derogatory comments about Daddy's spoiled little princess. Daniel copied specific exchanges, then reached for his phone. "Is Carmen still your contact at the Tribune?" he asked Bennett. "Yeah, why?" "I think she might be interested in a story about Dr. Thomas Hayes. Specifically, his misuse of hospital resources and potential violations of medical ethics." Among the files were records showing Hayes had used his hospital position to obtain prescription medications for Vanessa without proper medical consultation, had scheduled fake patient appointments to create time for their rendezvous, and had diverted hospital donor funds for personal use, including the down payment on his apartment. Bennett whistled low. "That's career-ending stuff, Dan. He should have thought of that before he mocked my daughter and conspired to extort me," Daniel replied coldly. "Make the call." The morning of Lily's engagement party arrived sunny and perfect. Daniel had arranged extra security at the Biltmore, ensuring neither Vanessa nor Hayes could disrupt the celebration. To his relief, the event unfolded beautifully. Lily radiant in a pale blue dress, Adam looking at her with obvious adoration. Friends and family gathered to celebrate their love. During his toast, Daniel looked around at the joyful faces and felt a moment of pure contentment despite the storm he knew was coming. To Lily and Adam, may your partnership be built on honesty, respect, and unwavering loyalty. These are the foundations of true love, and I could not be prouder of the foundation you've already built together. As glasses clinked and champagne flowed, Daniel's phone vibrated with a text from Bennett. "It's done. First article runs tomorrow morning." Daniel slipped the phone back into his pocket, his smile never faltering as he turned to embrace his daughter. Phase 2 was in motion. Chapter 5, Counterattacks. The headline in Sunday's Tribune sent shockwaves through the city's medical community. Prestigious cardiologist under investigation for ethical violations. The article detailed allegations that Dr. Thomas Hayes had misused hospital resources, improperly prescribed medications, and diverted donor funds. While carefully avoiding direct mentions of an affair, the piece noted that certain prescriptions were written for a woman not registered as a patient, identified only as VP, who received controlled substances without proper medical evaluation. By Monday morning, Hayes had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. By afternoon, 3 more former patients had come forward with complaints about his professional conduct, prompted by the initial story. Daniel monitored these developments from his office while finalizing details for the most crucial phase of his plan. He wasn't surprised when his phone rang with an unknown number. "You think you're clever." Vanessa's voice was tight with fury. "Destroying Thomas's career won't change anything between us." "I haven't destroyed anything," Daniel replied calmly. The good doctor managed that all on his own when he decided to violate medical ethics. "I simply made sure the right people knew about it. This is about hurting me, isn't it? Using your connections to attack the man I love because your ego can't handle being left." Daniel laughed, genuinely amused by her self-centered perspective. "Vanessa, not everything is about you. Hayes made enemies long before you entered the picture. I merely provided them with information they were already seeking." "We will fight you on every front," she threatened. "Your prenup won't hold up. You'll lose half of everything, the house, the business. I've given you 5 years of my life, and I've given you 5 years of mine," Daniel countered. "The difference is I honored our vows while you plotted behind my back. But please, by all means, fight me in court. I look forward to submitting evidence of your extensive communications with Hayes, planning how to extract maximum money from our divorce to fund your new life together." Silence stretched across the line. Daniel could almost hear her calculating, reassessing. "What do you want?" she finally asked, her voice brittle. "Exactly what the prenup stipulates. You leave with your personal property and the agreed-upon settlement. No claims on the house, the business, or additional support. And if I agree, then the matter ends cleanly. What happens to Hayes professionally is between him and the hospital ethics board. After she hung up, Bennett entered Daniel's office. That sounded productive. Daniel shook his head. She's stalling. Their next move will be more aggressive. Are we prepared? Bennett nodded. Security systems upgraded at your house and Lily's apartment. Digital monitoring in place. The investigators are ready if needed. Good, because this is far from over. Bennett studied his friend carefully. Dan, I've known you 30 years. I've seen you fight to survive, to build something from nothing. But I've never seen you like this calculated, this cold. Daniel met his gaze steadily. They threatened my child, Bennett. They mocked her, tried to ruin her special day, and then attempted to use her as leverage against me. There's no coming back from that. That evening, as Daniel returned home, he immediately sensed something was wrong. The front door was slightly ajar, though no alarms had been triggered. He cautiously entered to find the house in disarray. Drawers emptied, paintings askew, his office door standing open. A quick assessment confirmed his suspicions. This was no ordinary break-in. The only items missing were his personal files, the USB drive with evidence against Vanessa and Hayes, and the backup hard drive from his safe. The valuable artwork, electronics, and other valuables remained untouched. Daniel called Bennett rather than the police. They made their move. Send Ramirez over to check for planted devices. Bennett arrived with Ramirez, a former military intelligence specialist who now handled security for their construction sites. The sweep revealed 3 listening devices, one in Daniel's office, one in the kitchen, and one in the master bedroom. Professional job, Ramirez commented, bagging the devices. Not cheap. Can you trace them? Daniel asked. Possibly. Give me 24 hours. After they left, Daniel poured himself a drink and surveyed the damage. The break-in meant Vanessa was desperate good, but it also meant she was willing to play very dirty, concerning, but not unexpected. His phone rang again, Lily this time. Dad, something weird happened. Someone broke into my apartment today. The police are here. Daniel's blood ran cold. Are you and Adam all right? We're fine. We were both at work. But Dad, they didn't take my laptop or TV or anything valuable. Just went through all my papers and files. I'm on my way, Daniel said, already heading for the door. Don't touch anything else. At Lily's apartment, the scene was similar to his own home, a targeted search rather than a typical burglary. The police took statements, but Daniel knew they'd find nothing useful. This was a professional job, likely the same people who'd hit his house. Once the police left, Daniel sat Lily and Adam down. I need to tell you both something, and it's not pleasant. He explained the full situation with Vanessa, the affair, her attempt to cancel the engagement party, her callous comments about Lily, and now, these coordinated break-ins. Lily looked stunned. But why target me? I don't have anything to do with your divorce. Daniel hesitated, then decided complete honesty was necessary. Because they're looking for leverage against me, and you're the most important person in my life. They think hurting you is the way to control me. Adam put his arm protectively around Lily. This is criminal harassment. We should file for a restraining order immediately. We will, Daniel assured them. But first, I need you both to pack some essentials. You're not staying here tonight. He arranged for them to stay at the Bennett's house, where private security could be posted discreetly. Then he returned home to implement the next phase of his plan, one that neither Vanessa nor Hayes would see coming. The following morning, Daniel met with Gregory Walsh and a former federal prosecutor now in private practice, Sophia Lynn. They reviewed the evidence of the coordinated break-ins, the listening devices, and the clear pattern of harassment. This goes well beyond a contentious divorce, Lynn observed. With the evidence of prescription fraud, financial impropriety, and now breaking and entering an electronic surveillance, we have grounds for both criminal charges and civil action. Walsh nodded. The problem is proving who orchestrated the break-ins. Without direct evidence linking Vanessa or Hayes to the crimes, it's circumstantial. That's why we're not going to the police yet, Daniel explained. We're going to get that direct evidence. His plan was audacious but effective. Using his construction company's connections, Daniel arranged for a specialized security team to install hidden cameras throughout his home, cameras that would activate only when certain voices were detected. Additionally, they set up a honeypot trap, a visible safe with seemingly valuable documents that actually contained a GPS tracker and audio recording device. They've already shown they'll break in once, Daniel reasoned. They'll do it again when they realize the evidence they stole was incomplete. Lynn looked impressed despite her professional caution. This is approaching entrapment territory, Mr. Russo. I'm a private citizen protecting my property from individuals who have already invaded my home once, Daniel countered. Nothing illegal about that. While these preparations were underway, Daniel received a formal settlement offer from Vanessa's attorney, significantly reduced from their initial demands but still requesting substantial assets and ongoing support. They're testing your resolve, Walsh advised, seeing if the break-ins have made you more amenable to a generous settlement. Daniel smiled thinly. Respond with our original offer based on the prenup terms. Not a penny more. That evening, as Daniel worked late at his office, Bennett called with news. Ramirez traced the bugs. They were purchased through a shell company that links back to a private investigator named Maxwell Drake. Can we connect Drake to Hayes or Vanessa? Not yet, but Ramirez is monitoring Drake's communications. If they contact him again, we'll know. 2 days later, the trap was sprung. Daniel's security system alerted him to another break-in at his home, this time capturing clear footage of two professional-looking men methodically searching his office and removing the bait documents from the visible safe. By morning, the GPS tracker showed the documents had been taken to an address in the Arts District, Thomas Hayes' apartment building. The audio recording device had captured a damning conversation between the two men, explicitly mentioning they were working for Dr. Hayes and discussing payment terms. Daniel forwarded this evidence to Lynn and Walsh. Now we have direct proof. Rather than going to the police immediately, however, Daniel implemented the final stage of his countermove. He arranged a meeting with the hospital board chairman, Richard Harrington, an influential figure he knew from charity circles. Richard, what I'm about to share with you needs to remain confidential until the proper authorities are involved, Daniel began, sliding a folder across the desk. Dr. Hayes has not only violated medical ethics, but has engaged in criminal activity that poses serious liability risks for Presbyteria Hospital. Harrington reviewed the evidence with growing alarm. Prescription fraud, misappropriation of donor funds, and now breaking and entering an electronic surveillance. My God, he murmured, the potential damage to the hospital's reputation. Which is why I came to you first, Daniel explained. The police will be involved soon, but I wanted to give the hospital an opportunity to address this internally before it becomes a public scandal. Harrington looked grateful but wary. What exactly are you proposing, Daniel? A swift, decisive response from the hospital board, immediate termination of Hayes, full cooperation with authorities, and a public statement emphasizing that his actions were those of an individual, not reflective of the hospital's ethical standards. By the end of the meeting, Harrington had agreed to call an emergency board meeting. Within hours, Hayes received notice of his termination, effective immediately, with security escorting him from the building. Only then did Daniel, through his attorneys, file formal criminal complaints against both Hayes and Vanessa for orchestrating the break-ins, illegal surveillance, and harassment. That evening, as Daniel sat in his home office reviewing the day's events, his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. You've ruined me. Thomas Hayes' voice was ragged with fury. Do you have any idea what you've done? I've done nothing but expose the truth, Dr. Hayes, Daniel replied calmly. Your choices led to these consequences, not mine. This isn't over. Vanessa and I. Vanessa, and you are finished, Daniel interrupted. The police have the evidence linking you both to the break-ins at my home and my daughter's apartment. Criminal charges are being filed as we speak. It was a long silence. What do you want? Hayes finally asked, echoing Vanessa's earlier question. I want you both to disappear from our lives, Daniel stated simply. Accept the consequences of your actions, leave this city, and never contact me or my family again. And if we do, then I won't pursue additional civil damages beyond what the criminal courts mandate. But Dr. Hayes, if either of you ever come near my daughter again, I will dedicate my considerable resources to ensuring you never rebuild your life or your reputation. That's not a threat, it's a promise. After hanging up, Daniel poured himself a small drink and gazed out at the city lights. The battle was turning in his favor, but he'd been in business long enough to know that wounded opponents were often the most dangerous. Vanessa and Hayes had lost much, but not everything. Not yet. And they still hadn't responded to the criminal charges. Daniel needed to remain vigilant. The war wasn't over. Chapter 6, The Darkest Hour. The criminal complaints against Vanessa and Thomas Hayes created an immediate media firestorm. Headlines blared about the disgraced cardiologist and his married girlfriend accused of orchestrating break-ins and harassment. Presbyterian Hospital issued a statement condemning Hayes' actions and emphasizing their commitment to ethical standards. Vanessa's marketing firm placed her on administrative leave pending investigation. For 3 days, Daniel watched the public unraveling of their reputations with grim satisfaction. Then, just as he was beginning to believe the worst might be over, the counterstrike came. It began with a call from Bennett, his voice uncharacteristically tense. "Dan, you need to check the business email." Now, Daniel opened his laptop to find dozens of messages from clients and partners, all referencing the same thing, a press release that had been mass emailed from an anonymous account to everyone in the construction company's contact database. The document was professionally formatted to resemble an official company statement, detailing allegations that Daniel had embezzled from client projects, cut corners on building safety, and bribed city inspectors. It included forged documents, manipulated photographs, and enough specific details about actual projects to seem plausible to those unfamiliar with the truth. "It's being shared on industry forums," Bennett reported grimly. "3 clients have already called to put their projects on hold pending clarification." Daniel's phone began ringing constantly. Concerned employees, panicked investors, reporters seeking comment. The stock price of their publicly traded parent company began dropping. "She's going after my livelihood," Daniel realized, a cold fury settling in his chest. "Trying to destroy what took me 25 years to build." By afternoon, the situation had escalated. The state licensing board had received anonymous tips about code violations on multiple projects, triggering mandatory investigations. The bank called about unusual withdrawal attempts against the company's credit line. A reporter from a business journal emailed asking for comment on rumors that arrest warrants were forthcoming for financial crimes. Daniel gathered his crisis management team, Bennett, Walsh, the company's public relations director, and their chief financial officer. Together, they developed a comprehensive response strategy, immediate audits by respected third-party firms to verify financial and construction standards, transparency with all clients and partners, proactive outreach to regulatory authorities, and a public statement forcefully denying the false allegations while emphasizing Daniel's integrity and the company's spotless 30-year record. "We'll weather this," Daniel assured his worried executives. "Truth is on our side, and we have the documentation to prove it." Privately, however, he recognized the brilliant brutality of the attack. Unlike the criminal allegations against Hayes and Vanessa, which were backed by concrete evidence, these smears against Daniel relied on creating doubt, triggering investigations that would take months to resolve, and damaging trust that had taken years to build. Even when eventually disproven, suspicions would linger. While the company battled this crisis, Daniel received another blow, this one aimed directly at Lily. Anonymous tips had been sent to Adam's law firm and the State Bar Association, alleging that Adam had cheated on the bar exam and falsified credentials. Though patently false, the accusations required formal investigation, putting Adam's newly launched legal career under a cloud. When Daniel arrived at Lily's apartment that evening, he found his daughter in tears and Adam pacing in angry frustration. "This is insane," Adam fumed. "I've worked my entire life to build my reputation. Now I have to defend myself against anonymous lies." Lily looked up at Daniel, her expression transitioning from despair to determination. "This is Vanessa, isn't it?" She's doing this because you exposed her affair and filed charges. Daniel nodded grimly. She and Hayes are fighting back the only way they can, by trying to hurt the people and things I care about most. I won't let them destroy Adam's career, Lily declared, rising to her feet. Or yours, Dad. We need to fight back harder. Daniel studied his daughter, seeing in her the same resilience that had helped him rise from poverty to success. We will, sweetheart. But first, we need to understand exactly what we're up against. These attacks were too well orchestrated to be improvised. They've been planning this. That night, Daniel convened an emergency meeting at his home with his most trusted allies, Bennett, Walsh, Lynn, and now Ramirez, whose intelligence background was proving invaluable. They spread out the evidence of the coordinated attacks, looking for patterns and vulnerabilities. The precision targeting of your business relationships, Lily's fiancé's career. This isn't amateur work, Ramirez observed. They've hired serious professionals with access to industry contacts, databases, and forgery skills. Follow the money, Daniel instructed. Vanessa transferred large sums before our confrontation. Hayes had access to hospital donor funds. Someone's financing this operation, and financial trails can be traced. For the next 48 hours, they worked around the clock, defending against the public attacks while simultaneously investigating their origins. Ramirez's contacts in digital forensics identified the anonymous email accounts used to spread the false accusations, tracing them to a specialized reputation management firm with offices in 3 countries, a company known for both legitimate PR work and shadowy competitive intelligence operations for high-paying clients. They charge a minimum of $250,000 for crisis management, Ramirez reported, double that for offensive operations against competitors. So we're looking at a $500,000 campaign to destroy me, Daniel summarized. Where do they get that kind of money? The answer came from Walsh's financial investigators. Hayes had liquidated his retirement accounts and investment portfolio, taking substantial penalties in the process, while Vanessa had maxed out credit lines using their formerly shared address for verification. Together, they'd amassed nearly $800,000 in liquid assets. They're burning everything they have to bring you down, Bennett observed grimly. This isn't just revenge anymore. It's obsession. Daniel nodded slowly, which means they won't stop until they've destroyed me completely or run out of resources. So we accelerate their resource depletion, Lynn suggested. Force them to defend on multiple fronts simultaneously. Exactly, Daniel agreed. Time to implement the contingency plan. The counteroffensive began the next morning. First, Daniel's legal team filed for emergency injunctions against both Vanessa and Hayes, citing the ongoing pattern of harassment and defamation. The filings included all evidence gathered thus far, creating a public record of their actions that would be available to journalists and investigators. Simultaneously, Daniel arranged private meetings with key industry leaders, regulatory officials, and financial partners, sharing detailed documentation that disproved the false allegations against his company. His transparency and the comprehensive nature of his evidence began rebuilding trust, stabilizing the company's position. For Adam's situation, they took a different approach. Rather than merely defending against the false accusations, they went on offense, filing formal complaints against the anonymous accusers for filing false reports, requesting expedited review by the Bar Association, and providing extensive documentation of Adam's academic and professional record. We're not just responding to their attacks, Daniel explained to his team. We're forcing them to respond to ours. The strategy began showing results within days. The reputation management firm, facing potential legal exposure for their role in spreading false information, dropped Vanessa and Hayes as clients. 2 financial institutions flagged the unusual transactions in their accounts, freezing access pending investigation. The police investigation into the break-ins accelerated, with search warrants executed at both Vanessa's temporary residence and Hayes' apartment. Yet even as these pressures mounted, Vanessa and Hayes launched one final, devastating attack, this one targeting Daniel personally rather than professionally. It came in the form of a package delivered to Lily's apartment containing photographs, letters, and documents purporting to show that Daniel had abandoned his first wife rather than being abandoned by her. had engaged in multiple affairs throughout both marriages, and had hidden assets offshore to avoid financial obligations. The evidence was entirely fabricated, sophisticated forgeries mixed with manipulated photographs and context-stripped communications, but crafted to create doubt and pain. Included was a handwritten note addressed to Lily. Ask your father about his real past. You deserve to know who he truly is. When Lily called Daniel, he could hear the uncertainty in her voice. Dad, I know this is probably all lies, but some of it looks so real. The dates, the details. It's what they want, Daniel said quietly. To make you doubt me, to drive a wedge between us. That's the one thing I can't defend against with lawyers or evidence. Your trust in me. I do trust you, Lily insisted, but I need to hear it from you. These allegations about Mom. Daniel sighed heavily. Bring everything to the house tonight. We'll go through it together, and I'll tell you exactly what's true and what isn't. That evening, Daniel sat with Lily and Adam at his dining room table. The manufactured evidence spread before them. Piece by piece, Daniel explained the actual circumstances of his first marriage, showing Lily authentic documents and photographs from his personal archives that contradicted the forgeries. Your mother left when you were 8 months old, Daniel said gently. She decided motherhood and marriage weren't what she wanted. The abandonment papers are in my safe deposit box, real ones, not these forgeries. She terminated her parental rights when you were 3. Lily studied the conflicting evidence, her analytical mind, so like Daniel's, carefully separating fact from fiction. They went to extraordinary lengths to create this, she observed. The attention to detail, the research into your past. Because they know that losing your trust would hurt me more than losing any amount of money or professional standing, Daniel explained. That's why they saved this attack for last, when their other efforts were failing. Adam, who had been examining the documents with his legal training, looked up sharply. Mr. Russo, some of these forgeries use letterhead and signatures that would only be available from court records or legal filings. They need access to sealed documents. Daniel exchanged a glance with Bennett, who had been quietly observing from the kitchen doorway, meaning they have someone inside the court system or a law firm helping them. Maxwell Drake, the PI who provided the surveillance equipment, has been arrested, Bennett reported, checking his phone. He's facing multiple charges and is reportedly looking to make a deal. Good, Daniel said grimly, because we need to know everyone involved in this conspiracy, all the way to the top. As Lily and Adam gathered the documents for safekeeping as evidence, Daniel stepped onto his back patio with Bennett, staring out at the darkening sky. They've played their final card, Daniel observed. Used their last resources, deployed their most hurtful attack. Bennett nodded. And it failed. Lily knows who you are, which means it's time for us to end this, once and for all. Daniel turned to his oldest friend. Call Ramirez. Tell him to activate the last phase. Bennett studied Daniel's expression with concern. Are you sure? Once this is done, there's no going back. They try to destroy everything I've built and everything I love, Daniel replied, his voice quiet but resolute. They targeted my daughter, my livelihood, my reputation. There's already no going back. As night fell over the city, Daniel Russo made peace with what would come next. The final move in a battle that had become much more than a divorce or an affair. It had become a war for survival, and Daniel had not survived poverty, abandonment, and decades of ruthless business competition by showing mercy to those who sought to destroy him. The counterattack would begin at dawn. Chapter 7. The Architect of Destruction. As the first light of dawn broke over the city, Daniel Russo stood in his kitchen, preparing coffee with the methodical precision that characterized everything he did. Today would determine the outcome of the war that Vanessa and Hayes had initiated, and Daniel intended to be the victor. His phone rang. Ramirez, right on schedule. Everything's in place, sir. Operation commences in 30 minutes. Good. Keep me updated. Daniel hung up just as Bennett arrived, letting himself in with the key he'd had for decades. The team's in position, Bennett confirmed. You still certain about this? Daniel handed his friend a mug of coffee. Completely. They chose this battlefield, not me. What Vanessa and Hayes didn't know, couldn't have known, was that Daniel had been preparing for this moment since the day after their confrontation. While they'd been focusing on immediate attacks, Daniel had been quietly assembling an intricate web designed for one purpose: total and irreversible destruction of their futures. Phase 1 began at precisely 7:30 a.m., when Sophia Lynn held a press conference announcing expanded criminal charges against Vanessa and Hayes, now including conspiracy, wire fraud, identity theft, and witness intimidation. New evidence had emerged, she explained, showing the extent of their criminal enterprise. Simultaneously, Gregory Walsh filed civil lawsuits totaling $50 million against them personally, the reputation management firm they'd hired, and 5 as yet unnamed co-conspirators. The lawsuits detailed how they had coordinated a malicious campaign of destruction, targeting Daniel, his company, his daughter, and her fiancé. By 9 a.m., media outlets across the city were running breaking news alerts. By 10 a.m., the story had gone national, with business and medical publications picking up the implications for professional ethics in both fields. But these legal maneuvers were merely the visible portion of Daniel's strategy. The true devastation came from what was happening behind the scenes. Working through Bennett's extensive network, Daniel had arranged for every financial institution connected to either Vanessa or Hayes to receive formal notices of the criminal charges and civil suits, triggering automatic security protocols that froze their remaining assets pending investigation. Their credit cards stopped working. Their loan applications were flagged. Their financial existence effectively ceased. Ramirez's team had been systematically documenting every false allegation they had spread, tracing each back to its source, and preparing comprehensive evidentiary packages for regulators, professional associations, and law enforcement. Every person who had assisted them, from the reputation management firm to court clerks who had provided access to sealed documents, was now facing their own legal jeopardy. Most devastatingly, Daniel had hired former journalists to compile thorough investigative reports on Hayes' medical practice, identifying every patient who had received questionable care or prescriptions. These reports were sent simultaneously to medical review boards, malpractice attorneys, and patient advocacy groups, creating an avalanche of professional and legal challenges that would take years to resolve. They wanted to destroy my reputation and livelihood, Daniel explained to Bennett as they monitored the unfolding chaos from his home office. I'm ensuring they never rebuild theirs. At noon, Daniel received word that both Vanessa and Hayes had been taken into custody on the expanded charges, with bail set prohibitively high given the flight risk assessment. Their attorneys, sensing the overwhelming evidence against them, had already begun suggesting plea negotiations. By evening, the first co-conspirators were stepping forward, offering testimony in exchange for leniency. The reputation management firm issued a public apology and offered to share all communications related to the campaign against Daniel. Maxwell Drake, the private investigator, provided detailed accounts of meetings with Hayes where they had planned the break-ins and surveillance. Daniel watched these developments with cold satisfaction, but he took no pleasure in destruction for its own sake, only in the protection of what mattered most to him. At 8 p.m., as the media continued reporting new developments in the case, Daniel's doorbell rang. He opened it to find Lily and Adam standing there, expression solemn. "We saw the news," Lily said quietly. "It's everywhere." Daniel stepped aside to let them in. "I should have warned you it was coming." "No," Lily shook her head. "You did what was necessary. They left you no choice." In the living room, Adam looked troubled. "Mr. Russo, I understand why you took these measures, but the scope of it's complete annihilation." "They targeted everything I care about," Daniel replied simply. "My family, my company, my reputation, things I spent a lifetime building. They showed no limits in their attacks, so I showed none in my defense." "What happens now?" Lily asked. "They'll likely accept plea deals to avoid trials," Daniel explained. "Their professional careers are over. The financial consequences will be severe, but they'll survive, physically at least. I'm not a monster." Lily searched her father's face. "And us? Our family?" Daniel smiled gently. "We rebuild. We focus on your wedding plans. We move forward without looking back." After Lily and Adam left, Daniel sat alone on his back patio, watching the city lights shimmer in the distance. He felt no triumph, no joy in what he'd accomplished, only a weary relief that the threat to his family had been neutralized. His phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "You've won. It's over." Daniel didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The following morning, Daniel met with his company's board of directors to present a comprehensive plan for rebuilding client trust and organizational stability. With the truth about the false allegations now public, many clients were already returning, investigations were being closed, and the company's stock had begun to recover. "We've weathered storms before," Daniel reminded the board members. "We'll emerge stronger from this one." As he left the meeting, his phone rang with a call from Walsh. "The plea deals are being finalized," the attorney reported. "Hayes is looking at 3 years with possibility of parole, substantial fines, and permanent loss of his medical license. Vanessa will likely get 18 months, probation, and financial penalties. And the divorce? She's agreed to the original terms of the prenup. No contest. The papers will be ready for your signature tomorrow." Daniel thanked him and hung up, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. After weeks of brutal conflict, the end was finally in sight. That evening, Daniel invited Bennett and his wife Maria, along with the Bennetts and Lily and Adam, for dinner at his home. As they gathered around his table, sharing food and conversation, Daniel looked at these people who had stood by him through the darkest hours. His true family, bound not by legal documents but by loyalty, trust, and love. "I'd like to propose a toast," Daniel said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings and to the family we choose." As glasses clinked and smiles were exchanged, Daniel felt something he hadn't experienced in years: peace. The battle was won. The future stretched before them, unburdened by betrayal's shadow. Later, as the evening wound down, Walter Bennett pulled Daniel aside. "In 40 years as a judge, I saw many divorce cases turn ugly," the older man said quietly. "But few people have the resources or resolve to do what you did." Daniel nodded acknowledgement. It wasn't about the divorce in the end. It was about protecting what matters most. "And that's why Adam respects you, despite his legal concerns about your methods," Walter continued. "He sees a man who will move heaven and earth to protect his family. For someone hoping to become a father himself someday, that's a powerful example." As his guest departed, Daniel stood in his doorway, watching Lily and Adam walk to their car, heads close together in intimate conversation. Despite everything, the betrayal, the attacks, the painful revelations, his daughter's happiness remained intact. Her future with Adam was secure. That, more than any victory over Vanessa and Hayes, was Daniel's true triumph. Chapter 8: The Aftermath. 6 months after the arrests of Vanessa and Hayes, life had settled into a new normal for Daniel. The divorce was finalized, with Vanessa receiving only what the prenuptial agreement stipulated. His company had not only recovered, but was thriving, with 3 major new projects underway. Most importantly, Lily and Adam's wedding plans were proceeding with joyful momentum. Their special day, now only 2 months away. On a crisp autumn morning, Daniel sat in his lawyer's office, signing the final settlement documents that would formally end all civil litigation related to Vanessa and Hayes. Both were serving their sentences, Hayes in state prison, Vanessa in a minimum security facility. All the co-conspirators had been identified and dealt with, some facing criminal charges, others career-ending professional sanctions. "That's the last of it," Walsh said, gathering the signed papers. "Once these are filed, your legal entanglement with Vanessa Palmer officially ends." Daniel nodded, feeling oddly hollow at this anticlimactic conclusion. "Any word on her plans after release?" According to her attorney, she's arranged to live with a cousin in Oregon. Fresh start, different industry, new name. She's legally changing it back to her maiden name. "Good," Daniel said simply. He wanted Vanessa to disappear from his life completely, to become a distant memory rather than an open wound. As he left Walsh's office, Daniel called Bennett. "It's done. All the legal loose ends are tied up." "About damn time," Bennett replied. "Maria wants you to come for dinner tonight. Says you need to start socializing again." Daniel smiled at his friend's transparent attempt to normalize his life. Tell Maria I appreciate the thought, but I've got plans with Lily tonight. Wedding cake tasting. Fine, but you're coming Sunday. No excuses. After hanging up, Daniel drove to his office, where the day passed in a blur of meetings, site visits, and conference calls. By late afternoon, he was genuinely looking forward to the cake tasting with Lily. These small, joyful moments of wedding planning had become anchors in his week, reminders that life continued beyond trauma and betrayal. He arrived at the bakery to find Lily already there, studying flavor combinations with intense concentration. Dad, perfect timing. I've narrowed it down to 3 options, but I need your opinion on the filling for the 3rd tier. Daniel smiled, watching his daughter's animated explanations of buttercream versus ganache. In these moments, she reminded him so much of herself as a child. Enthusiastic, detail-oriented, determined to make the perfect choice. Whatever you prefer, I'll support, he assured her. It's your wedding, sweetheart. Lily gave him a knowing look. That's what you always say, but I want your honest opinion. You're part of this day, too. As they sampled various cake combinations, Lily eventually broached the subject Daniel knew had been on her mind. I heard the final settlement was today. How are you feeling about it? Daniel considered the question. Relieved mostly, ready to move forward without looking back. Have you thought about dating again? Lily asked carefully. It's been 6 months since Vanessa left. I'm not sure I'm ready for that, Daniel admitted. The business is demanding right now, and I'm focused on your wedding. Lily reached across the table to squeeze his hand. Dad, you deserve happiness too. Not everyone is like Vanessa or Mom. Daniel nodded, appreciating his daughter's concern, but knowing she couldn't fully understand his hesitation. 2 failed marriages had taught him painful lessons about trust and vulnerability. The thought of opening himself to that possibility again seemed overwhelming. After the cake tasting, they walked to their cars, Lily still bubbling with wedding details. Before they parted, she hugged him tightly. I'm proud of you, Dad, for everything. Driving home, Daniel reflected on his daughter's words. Pride was not an emotion he'd associated with the past 6 months. Necessity, survival, justice, those had been his guiding principles during the conflict with Vanessa and Hayes. But perhaps there was something worthy of pride in having protected what mattered most, in refusing to be destroyed by betrayal. At home, Daniel poured himself a small whiskey and stepped out onto his back patio, watching the sunset paint the sky in vivid orange and pink. His phone buzzed with an email notification, another wedding-related decision requiring his input. As he opened it, a different message caught his attention, a notification from the prison system's victim services program. Vanessa had requested a meeting. Daniel stared at the notification, a cold knot forming in his stomach. After everything, the betrayal, the attacks, the legal warfare, what could she possibly have to say that he needed to hear? His first instinct was to delete the message and block future communications. He had no obligation to grant her request, no reason to reopen wounds that were finally beginning to heal. Yet something, curiosity, perhaps, or the lingering need for final resolution, made him hesitate. Whatever Vanessa wanted, it would be under controlled conditions, with guards present and no possibility of manipulation or harm. Perhaps hearing her out would provide the closure he hadn't fully achieved through legal documents. After a long moment of contemplation, Daniel typed a response. Request approved for meeting next Tuesday, 2 p.m. He set down his phone, uncertain whether he'd made the right decision, but committed to facing this final chapter with the same clear-eyed resolve that had carried him through the conflict. The following Tuesday, Daniel arrived at the Women's Correctional Facility, a modern complex of beige buildings surrounded by high fences. After passing through security and surrendering his personal items, he was escorted to a visitor's room. Not the typical visitation area with its rows of tables, but a smaller, more private space used for attorney meetings and special circumstances. Vanessa entered, escorted by a guard who positioned herself discreetly by the door. Daniel was struck by the changes 6 months had wrought. Her designer clothes replaced by a plain prison jumpsuit, her carefully maintained appearance now stripped of artifice. She seemed smaller somehow, diminished by circumstances. Thank you for coming, Vanessa said, her voice lacking the confident edge he remembered. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, Daniel replied honestly. Why did you want to see me? Vanessa sat across from him, hands folded on the table. I wanted to tell you something, and I wanted to do it face to face, not through lawyers or letters. She took a deep breath. I'm sorry. Daniel studied her, looking for signs of manipulation or insincerity. For which part exactly? All of it, she said simply. The affair, trying to ruin Lily's engagement party, the things I said about her, especially for what came after with the attacks on your business and Lily's fiancé. It was unforgivable. Yes, it was, Daniel agreed, his voice steady. So why are you telling me this now? What do you hope to gain? Vanessa shook her head slightly. Nothing. I don't expect forgiveness or reconciliation. I know what I destroyed, and I know it can't be rebuilt. She met his gaze directly. I've had 6 months of therapy and group sessions to reflect on who I've become and why I made those choices. I wanted you to know that I understand the magnitude of what I did. Daniel leaned back in his chair, processing her words. And Hayes, where does he stand in all this reflection? A flash of pain crossed Vanessa's face. Thomas and I don't communicate anymore. He blames me for pushing the attacks too far, for involving Lily, which triggered your most aggressive response. She gave a bitter laugh. Turns out, when everything falls apart, he's as selfish and untrustworthy as I was. Despite everything, Daniel felt a flicker of pity for Vanessa. She had destroyed her life for a man who abandoned her at the first sign of serious consequences, a painful irony that hadn't escaped her notice. What happens when you get out? Daniel asked. I'll move to Oregon, as my attorney probably told you. Start over with a different name, in a different field. My marketing career is over. No one will hire me with this record and the publicity surrounding the case. She shrugged slightly. It's appropriate consequences for my actions. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history hanging between them. Finally, Daniel spoke again. I didn't come here to offer forgiveness, Vanessa. I came for closure. To understand why someone I trusted completely would try to destroy everything I cared about. Vanessa nodded. I know. And the truth is, it wasn't about you at all. It was about me. My insecurities, my jealousy of Lily, my fear of aging without having a child of my own. When Thomas offered what seemed like a solution, passion, the promise of a family, excitement, I grabbed it without thinking about who I was hurting. She paused. After you exposed us, it became about pride and revenge. I couldn't accept that I'd been wrong, so I had to make you the villain. Daniel considered her explanation, recognizing the painful truth in it. People rarely became monsters overnight. They slid into darkness through a series of small compromises, each justified by emotion or circumstance, until they found themselves unrecognizable. I appreciate your honesty, he said finally, and I hope you find peace in your new life. Vanessa blinked back, unexpected tears. You're a better person than I deserve, Daniel. Lily is lucky to have you as her father. As Daniel stood to leave, Vanessa remained seated, looking suddenly small and alone. One last thing, she said. I left something for Lily with my attorney, a wedding gift. Nothing extravagant, just something meaningful. It's her choice whether to accept it, of course. Daniel nodded, neither promising to deliver the message nor refusing. With a final glance at the woman who had been his wife, he turned and walked away, leaving behind the last remnants of a chapter of his life that had brought both joy and tremendous pain. Outside the facility, Daniel sat in his car for several minutes, processing the unexpected emotions the meeting had stirred. There was no satisfaction in seeing Vanessa reduced to her current state, no triumph in the knowledge that she would spend years rebuilding a life from ashes. Only a quiet acknowledgement that justice had been served, consequences delivered, and a natural order restored. As he drove home, Daniel felt lighter somehow, as if the meeting had released a tension he hadn't realized he was still carrying. Vanessa's apology changed nothing about the past, but it offered something he hadn't anticipated, permission to move forward without looking back. That evening, he called Bennett. About Sunday dinner. Is that invitation still open? Of course, Bennett replied, sounding pleased. Maria's already planning the menu. Would it be inappropriate if I asked you to include someone else? The new project manager we hired last month, Rebecca. She mentioned she's new to the city, doesn't know many people yet. Bennett was silent for a moment, then chuckled. Well, this is an interesting development. It's just dinner, Bennett. Professional courtesy. Sure it is. And yes, she's welcome. Maria will be thrilled. After hanging up, Daniel smiled to himself. Perhaps Lily was right. Perhaps it was time to consider the possibility of happiness again, cautiously, thoughtfully, but with an open heart. The future stretched before him, uncertain but full of promise. Chapter 9, Renewal. The late October morning dawned clear and bright, perfect weather for an outdoor wedding. Daniel stood in the garden pavilion of the Biltmore estate, adjusting his tie as he watched guests being seated for the ceremony. 8 months had passed since the final confrontation with Vanessa and Hayes, months that had brought healing, growth, and unexpected new beginnings. The wedding day had arrived, not just a celebration of Lily and Adam's love, but a testament to the family's resilience through adversity. Nervous? Bennett asked, approaching with 2 glasses of scotch. Daniel accepted the drink with a smile. Not nervous, just reflective. They toasted quietly, watching the scene unfold before them. The garden had been transformed with elegant floral arrangements, twinkling lights strung through the trees, and a white carpet leading to an arch festooned with roses and greenery. Among the arriving guests, Daniel spotted Rebecca Carson, the project manager whose professional courtesy dinner invitation had evolved into something much more meaningful over the past 5 months. She wore a deep blue dress that complemented her silver-streaked dark hair, and when she caught his eye, her smile carried a warmth that still surprised him. She's good for you, Bennett observed, following Daniel's gaze. Maria says you laugh more now. Daniel nodded, unable to deny it. At 46, he'd found a connection he hadn't thought possible after 2 failed marriages, with a woman whose own life experiences had taught her similar lessons about trust, vulnerability, and resilience. A coordinator appeared, signaling that it was time. Daniel drained his glass and headed inside to the bridal suite, where Lily waited with her bridesmaids. When he entered, the bridesmaids discreetly stepped out, leaving father and daughter alone. Lily stood before a full-length mirror, radiant in her wedding gown, a classic design with modern touches that perfectly suited her practical yet romantic nature. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," Daniel said, his voice thick with emotion. Lily turned, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Don't make me cry yet, Dad. The makeup artist will kill you." They laughed together, then Lily took his hands in hers. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything, for fighting for us, for never giving up, for showing me what real strength looks like." Daniel squeezed her hands gently. "You never needed me to show you strength, Lily. You've had it all along." "Maybe," she conceded, "but I learned how to use it from you." She reached for a small velvet box on the dressing table. "I have something for you." Daniel opened it to find a pair of cufflinks, simple platinum discs engraved with a compass rose design. "They're beautiful. So you'll always find your way," Lily explained, "no matter what storms come." As Daniel replaced his plain cufflinks with this meaningful gift, a knock sounded at the door. The coordinator peeked in. "It's time." The ceremony unfolded like a dream, Lily radiant on Daniel's arm as he walked her down the aisle, Adam's face lighting up at the sight of his bride, vows exchanged with genuine emotion before family and friends who had supported them through challenges and celebrations. Daniel's gaze occasionally drifted to Rebecca in the 3rd row, her presence a reminder that life continued to unfold in unexpected ways. When he'd finally shared the full story of Vanessa's betrayal and its aftermath, Rebecca had listened without judgment, her own divorce having taught her that relationships required both trust and boundaries, vulnerability and strength. During the reception, as twilight descended and the garden twinkled with thousands of fairy lights, Daniel found himself at the center of a moment he would long remember. Lily and Adam had just completed their first dance, and the band announced it was time for the father-daughter dance. As Daniel led Lily onto the floor, the familiar strains of "What a Wonderful World" filled the air, the song they danced to at her high school graduation, a tradition continued through life's milestones. "Happy?" he asked quietly as they moved across the floor. "Completely," Lily answered, her smile luminous. And you? Daniel glanced toward Rebecca, who was chatting easily with the Bennetts. Getting there, he admitted, one day at a time. After the dance ended, Daniel made his way to Rebecca's side, sliding an arm around her waist as they watched Lily and Adam laughing with friends. You've raised an extraordinary young woman, Rebecca observed. She raised herself in many ways, Daniel replied. I just try to provide a foundation. Later, as the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Daniel found himself alone for a moment at the edge of the garden, watching the celebration from a slight distance. The past 18 months had tested him in ways he couldn't have imagined. From Vanessa's betrayal to the brutal war that followed, from the threat to everything he'd built to this moment of joyful resolution. He'd emerged changed, but not broken, wiser about human nature, but not cynical, cautious, but still capable of connection. Most importantly, he'd preserved what mattered most: his relationship with Lily, his integrity, his capacity for renewal. Bennett approached, handing him a fresh glass of scotch. Penny for your thoughts? Daniel smiled at his oldest friend, just appreciating the view. They stood in companionable silence, watching Lily and Adam saying goodbye to departing guests, their easy affection and shared joy evident in every interaction. You know, Bennett said thoughtfully, when this all started, with Vanessa's betrayal, I was worried about how far you might go for revenge. Daniel nodded, understanding his friend's concern. It wasn't about revenge in the end. It was about justice, about consequences, about making sure they couldn't hurt us anymore. And now, are you at peace with how it all turned out? Daniel considered the question, thinking of Vanessa serving her sentence, of Hayes' destroyed career and reputation, of the life he himself was rebuilding from the ashes of betrayal. Peace might be overstating it, he admitted, but I'm satisfied with the outcome. They made their choices, and I made mine. Rebecca joined them, slipping her hand into Daniel's with the easy familiarity they'd developed. The newlyweds are about to leave for the hotel. You want to say goodbye. Together, they returned to the celebration for final embraces, well wishes, and promises to meet again soon. As Lily and Adam departed in a shower of rose petals, Daniel felt a profound sense of completion. One chapter ending, another beginning. Later that night, as Daniel and Rebecca walked along the Biltmore's moonlit gardens, she asked a question he'd been expecting. Do you ever regret how thoroughly you destroyed them? Vanessa and Hayes. Daniel paused, considering his answer carefully. I regret that it became necessary. I regret that they chose a path that led to such consequences. But I don't regret protecting what mattered most to me. Rebecca nodded, understanding. The capacity for that kind of decisive action is what makes you who you are. It's what builds companies, protects families, creates legacies. She looked up at him. It's also what makes you both admirable and a little terrifying. Daniel laughed softly. I'm not sure how to respond to that. You don't need to, she assured him. Just know that I see you clearly. All of you, not just the successful businessman or the devoted father, but also the man who survived abandonment, who built something from nothing, who refuses to be victimized. And I'm still here. Her words touched something deep within Daniel. The recognition he'd always sought but rarely found, to be seen completely and accepted nonetheless. As they continued their walk beneath the stars, Daniel reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. The path had been neither straight nor easy, marked by betrayal and battle, loss and victory. Yet here he stood, not merely surviving, but beginning to thrive again, surrounded by the family he'd protected and the possibilities of a future he hadn't imagined. The wounds would always be there, scars that marked the battles fought and won. But they no longer defined him. What defined Daniel Russo now was the strength he'd found in adversity, the loyalty he'd earned through integrity, and the capacity for renewal that had surprised even himself. As Rebecca's hand tightened in his, Daniel allowed himself to feel something he'd almost forgotten: hope. Not the naive optimism of youth, but the hard-earned hope of a warrior who had faced his darkest battles and emerged victorious, scarred but undefeated, ready to build again on foundations that would not crumble. The night embraced them, full of promise and possibility. And Daniel Russo, architect of his own destiny, stepped forward into the future he had fought so fiercely to secure. Epilogue. 1 year later, Daniel stood on the balcony of his new home, a sleek, modern structure overlooking the ocean, designed by his own company as a symbol of his fresh start. Behind him, the sounds of a small gathering filtered through open doors, laughter, conversation, the occasional clink of glasses. Inside, Lily and Adam were sharing news of their impending parenthood with close friends and family. Daniel had known for weeks, but had kept their secret, savoring the private joy of knowing he would become a grandfather in the spring. Rebecca joined him on the balcony, sliding an arm around his waist. After a year together, they had recently decided to merge their lives more permanently, though marriage remained a distant consideration for two people who had learned painful lessons about rushing into such commitments. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, echoing Bennett's familiar phrase. Daniel smiled, drawing her closer. "Just thinking about circles, endings that become beginnings, losses that lead to unexpected gains." Rebecca understood, as she always did. In the years since Lily's wedding, life had settled into new patterns. Vanessa had been released on parole and moved to Oregon as planned, maintaining the silence and distance that their final prison meeting had established. Hayes remained incarcerated, his appeals exhausted, his former life irretrievably lost. Daniel's company had not merely recovered, but flourished, expanding into new markets with innovative projects that reflected his renewed creative energy. Lily and Adam had thrived in their careers while preparing for parenthood, and Daniel himself had discovered a capacity for happiness he'd almost forgotten existed. "Come inside," Rebecca urged gently. "Bennett is about to propose a toast, and you know how he gets if everyone isn't present for his dramatic moments." Daniel laughed, allowing himself to be led back into the warmth of the gathering. These were his people, Bennett and Maria, the Bennetts, now joined by Adam's parents, Lily and Adam, glowing with happiness. Colleagues who had become friends, friends who had become family. As Bennett raised his glass, launching into an elaborate toast celebrating both the coming baby and the couple's first anniversary, Daniel caught Lily's eye across the room. She smiled at him, a smile that held both her mother's beauty and her own unique strength, a strength forged in the same fires that had tempered Daniel's. In that moment, Daniel Russo knew with absolute certainty that the battles had been worth fighting, the scars worth bearing. For this circle of love and loyalty, this foundation of trust and resilience, was the true victory. Not the destruction of those who had betrayed him, but the protection and nurturing of what mattered most. The future stretched before them all, bright with promise and possibility. And Daniel, once architect of destruction, now stood as architect of something far more powerful, a legacy of love that would outlast any betrayal, any battle, any storm. He raised his glass to join the toast, his voice strong and clear in the room filled with those he cherished most. To beginnings without end. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I'll see you there.